ในช่วงถัดไปนะคะเราจะมาพูดคุยกันว่ายุคตอนนี้เนี่ยเป็นยุครุ่งเรืองของ DeFi ที่เริ่มมาตั้งแต่ปี 2020 แล้วนะคะและด้วยความที่DeFi เนี่ยเป็นที่นิยมมากขึ้นผลตอบแทนการลงทุนก็สูงกว่า traditional finance หรือว่าการลงทุนแบบเก่าๆนะคะสิ่งนี้ทำให้มีเม็ดเงินจากนักลงทุนเนี่ยไหลไปสู่ตลาด DeFi คิดเป็นมูลค่าสูงสุด 177,000 ล้านดอลลาร์ค่ะแต่ DeFi จริงๆก็ถือว่าอยู่ในช่วงแค่เป็นช่วง early stage หรือว่าเป็นช่วงเริ่มต้นค่ะเพราะว่า DeFi เนี่ยยังมีจุดอ่อนอีกมากมายที่สามารถแก้ไขได้ไม่ว่าจะเป็น Toxic Liquidity นะคะการที่แพลตฟอร์ม DeFi ไม่สามารถรักษาสภาพคล่องของแพลตฟอร์มไว้จากนักลงทุนได้หรือว่าในช่วงต่อไป DeFi จะเป็นยังไงบ้างนะคะมีแพลตฟอร์มตัวไหนที่เริ่มแก้ไขเพนพอยต์ต่างๆตรงนี้แล้วบ้างเราจะมาพูดคุยกันในเซสชันที่มีชื่อว่า The Next Phase of DeFi อนาคตของ DeFi ค่ะในช่วงนี้เราได้รับเกียรติจากวิทยากรที่บนเวทีนะคะ Please welcome Mr. Palit Bunlươn, Senior Analyst Cryptomine Advisory, Mr. Dang Ariel, Contributor General Manager, Lido and P2P Validator Neutron, Miss Tacha Panyaneramiddi, Co-founder and CEO Alpha Venture DAO, and Mr. Park, Thailand Venus Star, Venus Protocol. So please give a big round of applause.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Palit Bunlươn, Senior Analyst from Cryptomine Group. I will be a moderator in this session, the next phase of DeFi. Before we get into this point, I would like you guys to introduce yourself to the audience so that they will know your background and what you do. Okay, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Avril. Here, people call me Dang. I am a contributor to Lido, which is a liquid staking protocol. It's the second largest DeFi protocol in the industry. And I'm also leading a team that is building Neutron, a permissionless smart contract platform. So something like Ethereum, but with advanced ability to interact across multiple blockchains.
Hi, my name is Tasha or Pan Pan in Thai, co-founder and CEO of Alpha Venture DAO or previously Alpha Finance Lab. What we do is we build a lot of DeFi applications. One of the flagship products is called Alpha Homora. It's a lending leverage farming product with the total value locked of up to around $2 billion back in the good days of DeFi. We also have innovated a number of other DeFi concepts, led the DeFi 2.0 new narrative in the whole industry with different concepts of collateralizing LP tokens, protocol-to-protocol lending. So there are a lot of innovations that we came up in DeFi. And now we also started to incubate a lot of global DeFi projects as well. So far, we've incubated about 10 projects in DeFi globally.
Hello, my name is Park. I am a Venus Star who take care of Venus Thailand community. Venus is a decentralized lending protocol. So Venus is a top of lending platform in BSC chain. I think we have a lot of development in recently months. Especially Venus V4, we have a lot of development about innovation of like lending protocol. We have a difficult time when we start with our collateral in the platform, so we cannot swap. And we also have a new feature that can swap into our protocol with cooperation with Pancake.
Great, nice. And everyone in this panel has a really skin in the game. I think the audience will get a deep perspective in DeFi for sure. Okay, let's start with the first question. Decentralized finance or DeFi has been so popular in the past 1 or 2 years ago. Everyone has never seen such an innovation that remove third party such as DEX like Uniswap, SushiSwap, lending like Compound, Aave or Venus, leverage farming like Alpha Homora, and liquid staking like Lido. Here's a question. Could you give us an example of what's the next innovation in DeFi space? Okay, you first.
Yeah, I can take. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be any fancy, complicated products or anything like that. Although a lot of projects are building complicated products right now, but I think the next wave of innovation should be rethink the fundamental building blocks. For example, money market, trading platforms, or even decentralized exchange in a way that works for large amount of money. Because as we see now with the past, cycle of DeFi, right? All these fundamental building blocks only are capable of accepting, $100, $1,000 when you lend or when you trade. If you start lending 50 million, if you start trading 50 million, you get very high slippage, you get, very low yields. So the fundamental building blocks don't work for large amount of money, which we think that in order for DeFi to scale and also to innovate, all these institutions that have corrupted or bankrupted from CeFi or different fallout that have happened, a lot of new institutions are going to look to use DeFi. So I think the fundamental building blocks will be the one that will drive the next wave. It may not sound sexy, but I think that's is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, just to build on top of that, I think yield itself is also something we need to solidify because I think we're going to talk about it a bit later, but minting new supply may not be the most sustainable way to provide yield to people, but there are alternatives. There are ways to have yield that comes from the fact that the product is actually being used. So in terms of dApps, that can be, for example, sharing the transaction fees of a DEX, or that can be, for example, sharing the transaction fees from the blockchain itself, right? And so that is basically what liquid staking does. And I think that's what makes liquid staking derivatives such great assets to actually build an economy on top of, because it reduces our dependency on speculation, which, whilst it might fuel innovation, isn't perhaps the most sustainable driver. And the other and last thing that I think is a fundamental that we need to improve and develop is the stablecoins. Currently, the industry relies on stablecoins that are centrally issued. Well, this is fine so far in that it has provided stable backing because people trust in the fact that these centralized entities manage their treasuries well. Eventually, we do want to have decentralized, censorship-resistant, robust, and scalable stablecoins, which is not something that we seem to have figured out yet, but that people are working on.
For me, in my opinion, I think we are really early in the crypto world, right? Just so maybe 1% in for our population that know about crypto and use crypto, then maybe it's difficult to access to the crypto. How to use the wallet and to have to learn a lot of things. Nowadays, we still have a lot of DeFi, that's a luck pool, and also have some like centralized, have a problem with a centralized exchange.
Yeah. Like
So there is a lot of, it's a long time to go. So I think there is a big gap that's in the future. That's people no need to learn about DeFi, no need to learn about how to keep their wallet, keep their seed phrase. Everyone can use it like ATM. That's you can cash out money from ATM machine, right? That's is a mass adoption. That's I think this is the future of DeFi.
Okay, that was an interesting idea about focus in the fundamental sharing fee from the blockchain and build on top of that and stablecoin. And the last one is about the easier to use the wallet, right? Okay, here's a next question. It's about governance token. The most important thing in every DeFi platform is liquidity. And the easiest way to attract liquidity is incentivized by governance token rather than fee or interest rate. It works in short term, but hard in long term. Well, the question is that how to deal with the government sell-off like toxic liquidity. Okay, how about Avil first?
Yeah, sure. I think actually the most fundamental problem is not necessarily like, is governance token incentivization good or bad? I think the thing is like we need to think about the DeFi products themselves as products, right? So if having a token doesn't improve the product by providing a tool to align the incentives of third-party permissionless participants, or if it doesn't provide a tool to have decentralized governance in a product that needs to have decentralized governance, then perhaps we just don't need a token in the first place. And incentivization itself is not, something that is endemic to crypto. Like if you look at Uber or at Airbnb to bootstrap these networks, they often raise cash from investors and use these to subsidize, the supply and the demand of the early participants of the network. And so that is still something that is possible in crypto. And so I think, rather than saying like governance tokens are good or bad, I think the question really is, does this specific product need a token? If so, okay, let's design it. If not, let's, not have one and allow the company that is behind it to ship as efficiently as possible, and to ensure that people can trust the product, then we just make it immutable so that it cannot be changed and there is no, need to trust the company. And if you need to update it, just make a new version. Yeah, that would be my take.
I think I would speak from the user's perspective. I think you touch a very good point on the project's perspective in terms of like which kind of product or which kind of project actually needs a token. I think from the user's standpoint, you may not have a choice. You may, want to yield farm or earn from these yields. So a lot of times, my friends or my people that I know, they also get a lot of risk from using these products, right? So I think incentivizing with the token is good. The yields may seem very high, but from the user's standpoint, I think you really have to understand how the product actually works, because right now there's no standard way to report the yields. So sometimes the front end may just show one number when, in reality there might be hidden risks somewhere in the product. So as a result, the ones who are paying for those yields are actually the users, right? And there's a famous saying quote saying that if you don't know where the yields are coming from, it's probably you. So I think from the user standpoint, don't trust whatever the front end is saying, whatever the product advertised. So really have to dig into understanding how and where the yields come from. But we're still very early. I think the fact that we're trying to explore how do we grow the product is one way of doing it in terms of incentivizing token. But as Ariel says, there are many other ways. And I think as we grow as an industry, we're going to figure out a more sustainable way to actually bootstrap growth.
I'm quite agree with Dan. I think instead of we focusing on a yield, but I think we have to focus on product. Yeah. So the major product in DeFi world, I think is one is a deck and another one is a lending platform. Every chain have to kind of this protocol, right? So you have to trust the leader of the protocol on each chain, and this is very important because you have to understand how to make money for each protocol, and only touch with the protocol that you have to check about TVL and for the background team, and also VC who support to that team. Yeah, this is a very important to understand on that protocol instead of only you focusing on you.
Yes, that's right. If you don't know where the yield how come from, you are the yield. That's the motto of this DeFi world. And it's just like let fund, like I explained on the VC, right? If you don't need a governance token, maybe it actually don't need a governance token. Sorry. Okay. Next question. Today we have seen many newly created trends in DeFi, such as real yield, app chain, under collateral, and new stablecoin. But of course, we are not sure this trend may change rapidly because DeFi 2.0 cannot even survive right now. I want to ask three of you, will this trend I mentioned earlier can make DeFi sustainable in the long run, and why?
Maybe I'll tackle the one that is kind of like the odd one out here. I don't think app chain is actually so directly related to DeFi itself. It's kind of like more of a blockchain infrastructure kind of like trend, I guess. But I do agree with the app chain thesis, actually. The idea is that On a shared platform like Ethereum, Avalanche, Phantom, BSC, and a lot of others, when you build a protocol or a business, you have to agree with the rules of that platform, right? The design choices they made. So for example, you could make the analogy that it's like building a business in Thailand, you have to agree with the rules of Thailand, right? In some cases, you may want to have different choices to make your product better, your business better. In the real world, creating a new country is not really possible, but in blockchain, we can actually do that. We can create new, block space, essentially. And so, the most ambitious protocols, the ones that are the most successful, that have the resources and that see how they could make their product better by making different design choices, are likely to eventually want to build their own blockchains and connect to the rest of, the industry, the rest of DeFi on their own terms. So that's the upchain thesis, and I think is going to be interesting, but it probably will take some time before we see it play out.
Yeah, I'll take the last one then, under collateralized. I think back in the bull run, right, where a lot of prices were high, and I think a lot of projects or even companies, centralized companies, they bake in the value as if it's actual value, but technically it's paper value. And hence they try to game the system in a way to under collateralize or not requiring to collateral at all even, which I think is not a way to go. It's not sustainable at all, because when one party breaks, then everything is ruined, right? But I think in terms of blockchain space or even in DeFi, what will happen though is more of people will try to experiment ways to make money more efficient, but not in a way that is very risky, as if you don't need a collateral. For example, what you were mentioning about DeFi 2.0. So let me share a bit more in case someone may not be familiar with DeFi 2.0, right? So DeFi 2.0 is mainly the concept that, hey, if you already lend your crypto assets in one particular lending protocol, can you do anything with that receipt of the lending? So technically, the money is actually in a protocol, but you can use that receipt to do something more while still earning the yields. So I think it's more of like expanding that concept of how do you extend, different Lego blocks into different way to utilize money more efficiently. But I think the collateralization and even over collateralization will still be needed. There might be different parameters that people can add though. For example, if you KYC, perhaps, if you already use product A, product B, product C, and hence show that you have good track record of paying back your loans in product A, product B, product C, perhaps you can have lower ratio to collateralize. But I think it would be still over collateralized in the near term.
If I may, I have a bit of a question. So I agree with you on the risk and the sustainability, and like especially the systemic risk of you have one domino and then everything fails. I guess one of the strongest argument for uncollateralized lending is inclusivity, meaning that collateralized lending is fine if you already have capital. You can post it as collateral and then take another form of money and then do something else with this. But if you don't have money, you don't have that collateral. And so how do you access financing, in your opinion, in this context?
I think in my opinion, it will be collateral in another form. So, but still something has to be at stake. Perhaps it's your reputation, perhaps it's your history, but in a way, it's just harder to actually punish when things don't fall into place, because let's say, how do you punish reputation or like history? But I think like right now, the easiest way to put on the stake is money. So hence, that's why we kind of expand into the over collateralization model. But eventually, when identity is more robust on chain, when different concepts are more robust on chain, then I think different angles will be able to kind of supplement or even replace this over collateralization.
For Venus, we have no over collateralization. Right? It's like automatic. How to say? It's automatic, like not like centralized lending platform that's have a problem recently. So we use a smart contract to use its collateralized and automatic liquidation, and so this is for sustainable of this. We still have a lot of thing to develop in lending platform because for sustainable we have to use more than one oracle and for government token I think if we want is to be sustainable I think it go back to the last question that's we have to focus on the product that's if a government token maybe it's give time for newbie protocol to take time for them to develop their product but you have to think about the future that protocol can be survived in the future if it can be survived in the future that governance token maybe it will make a profit in the future but for governance token I think it's just a like experiment for DeFi world maybe it's a like some innovation from DeFi like GMX right that's adapt that governance token to make a real yield that's maybe it's a new trend in the future but it's really easy if you focus on your product this kind of adaptation of governance token it can be copied in the future I think
Yeah, I see many DeFi copy like GMX. Okay, to summarize, I think some innovation may not pass in the sustainable long way. I'm thinking about minting a new goal. Goal is new stable coin from Aave, right? It can mint by credit score. I think it will correlated with the Lens protocol, a new social platform from Stani. Nice. Okay. Next one, from the news in early November, huge bank like JP Morgan announced first transaction in DeFi via Aave, Red, and also Reddit, Starbucks, Disney, and a lot. We want to know that in the future, what are the possible trends for the big investor of companies to invest in DeFi? Yeah, maybe institutional also.
I think it's very important for them. In my perspective, only two points. That is stable, and also like how to say institution they focus on yield and fixed rate interest. If we can develop two parts of this, I think no worry, they will come for sure.
Institution like fixed
and
rate.
for Venus we also develop for the fixed rate market.
They like certainty. Okay, and you?
I agree. I think more on kind of like a general approach. I think like arguably DeFi is still like very, very early as an industry. And so if I were to approach this market from an investor's perspective with, large amount of capital behind me and the need to make kind of like perhaps more safe decisions, I would focus on actually owning the infrastructure that this economy will be built on rather than trying to like pick the applications that will be the winners. I think like owning the blockchains is kind of like the approach that we've seen so far, like the FAT protocol, the fact that the value accrues to the blockchains. I think that might not remain the case forever, but I don't think it's going to change that fast. So what I would do is probably like focus on having a share in Ethereum and have some yield on it. So SDETH, let's go.
Great.
Or like people who are building kind of like the rails to connect multiple blockchains. I think that's really interesting as well because a lot of them have blown up. The person who figures out how to do it well probably will generate a lot of value. There's a few vertical like this, but basically I would go for the infrastructure itself.
Yeah, infrastructure. And you?
I think for me, there are like three main things. One is something that I touched upon earlier, in which the fundamental products of financial system technically are only lending and trading. or in crypto or in DeFi would be, decentralized lending or decentralized exchange, right? So we need these two fundamental building blocks to actually work for a large amount of money. At the moment, as I touched upon earlier, it only works for, small amount of money. If you put in 50 million to lend, if you trade at 50 million, you're going to get very high slippage. So that's number one, that we have to make it work first. Second thing is security, for sure. Right now, it's more of like, depending on which project, depending on how much risk appetite they're looking to take, how much money they have to audit, then that's pretty much as secure as products can get, right? There's no standard way of saying this is the number of audits you need to have. These are the audit companies that you have to work with. So right now it's pretty much depending on luck, and that's not the good way for institutions to come in, for sure. The third thing I think is something more of the back end. So what I mean by the back end is that a lot of these institutions actually have to report their revenue, their profits. So if they are going to lend 50 million on a lending protocol, they have to have a support in terms of, okay, how do you actually account this in accounting books and report it back to the bank, right? So I think without that additional support from DeFi as an ecosystem, it's going to be hard. So right now, each company, JP Morgan, each institutional firm have to, find their way of how do we understand this? Is this a stock? Where do they account it? I think as an ecosystem, if we together can work together to kind of like build a tool, build a way to standardize this a bit more, then I think it's going to be an easier way to onboard these institutions.
Okay, great. And the last question. Right now, there are many DeFi platforms come up with a new idea of tokenomics, like Vote Escrow of Curve, Tree by Game Theory by Olympus DAO, revenue sharing like GMX. Unfortunately, the price of their tokens still drop. Here's the last question. We want your tips and recommendation for choosing a cryptocurrency to invest.
Yeah, don't choose a cryptocurrency, choose a product. You're investing in a business or a platform, and so first you need to know, does this actually solve any problem? Is there anybody who has this problem and wants to use this product? If the answer to both of these questions is yes, and you can see in practice that people are starting to use this, then perhaps then that's when you start looking deeper into the tokenomics, who are the investors, the team, etc. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think to add a bit more to that, I think also the vision and where and why they're building this, because a lot of times, like whole DeFi ecosystem now may not be ready for the perfect product, right? The product that is available now might just be a simple one, or maybe it might not make sense from the traditional financial perspective even, but it's something that people in DeFi are looking for. So I think in order to understand why the product matters, you also have to understand why they're building this. What's the vision? Is it a puzzle of this large ecosystem that they're going to build? So that's the first thing. The second thing is definitely the team. I think a lot of the times that I see are very successful product, very successful tech, but the team may not be as long term, or the team may not have the tenacity to go through a lot of the changes, because there are very many tough times in crypto for sure. So we need the team that are long term and have that tenacity.
For my perspective only, not suggestion, only myself, I only invest in the product that I use. This is a very simple and very easy to understand for the newbie to come in crypto. Don't listen to other influencer, because when you think you know more, but actually is in DeFi world is really deep, right?
Yeah.
So you think you understand it enough, but only understand with listening, not just using, right? If you use it and you think it's worth with the crypto world in the future, and you can go to the next step. That's you have to check the token and tokenomic, and for the emission rate, and how many portion of the token does the owner take it, right? So this is you compare with the revenue they have. This might be is quite like when you select something in stock market, right? You have their account, and then I think it's the same, but you have to guess because this is the new world, right? So you have to think what the product that can fulfill the big hole for the crypto financial in the future.
Okay, to summarize, look at the vision of the product first and choose the product, not the cryptocurrency. And after that, we will look at the team and the tokenomics of that. Okay, that's all for this panel. As a representative of CryptoMine Group, thank you everyone for joining our session. Thank you ครับ
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.